NBE, Neil Brown Engineering power unit as well, which is in the T-Sport cars, and it's still developing, and it's a bit like why Dallara has this monopoly in terms of the chassis. Mercedes and Volkswagen have the domination in terms of engines because they're tried and tested, and nobody really wants to take the gamble on something that may not work as well. Dallara has been the dominant car, Formula 3 globally, since 1993, and it was successful in Italy and France even prior to that. But by mid-season 1993, the British Championship, all the Rolls and Reynard teams switched to this very, very promising Dallara that had just come into the country. And the following season, everybody had a Dallara. And although Lola and the Lola Dome project as well, and on occasions Ralt, the reborn Ralt, have tried to crack that, it's so hard to persuade any team and any driver to go down that route because it might not work and you've just wasted a year of your career.
Yes.
And therefore, without the data being brought back, no chassis manufacturer can really move forward. And so in the short term, Formula 3 has become this unofficial one-make category, and it's for the foreseeable future because nobody else really can take on Dallara.
Yes, I think you're right. They're there for the duration, aren't they, at the moment? So the car's all getting away then beyond the behind the safety car, and because they've gone off behind the safety car, the clock ticks down immediately.
That's right. 35 minutes max, or 22 laps. So round 6 of the championship, the grid order is going to be the race order, certainly until the race director Sven Stopper allows them to go. And then they've got to contend with these really greasy conditions, and an open wheeler in the wet is no fun because all the spray is going to be generated into the face of the guys behind. The only driver with any real proper visibility is going to be Felix Rosenqvist, but equally he's the man that's got to assess the grip levels every corner, every lap. It gets a little bit easier if it's drying, but if it becomes wetter, and there is the chance of a bit more rain, then life is going to be very difficult indeed. Felix Rosenqvist will lead Charles Leclerc, then it's Max Günther third ahead of Lance Stroll, Callum Ilott and Antonio Giovinazzi. Mikkel Jensen, Santino Ferrucci, Marcus Palmer and Gustavo Menezes will round out the top 10. Then it's Fabian Schiller, Alex Albon, Ryan Tveter, Alessio Lorandi, Raoul Hyman, then Sam McLeod, and the rest of the field will be headed by the Indian driver Arjun Maini. After him it will be Brandon Maisano, who's a long way back on this grid, Michele Beretta, Tatiana Calderon, and here it is indeed with the qualifying times, which was the driver's second best time out of the second qualifying session. That's the one session that gives you 2 race grids. The top 10 we've already talked about. Behind Jake Dennis, one to watch. Then you've got Fabian Schiller, Alex Albon, Ryan Tveter, and yesterday we had Arjun Maini off the road, so he's hopefully going to go better today. Raoul Hyman likewise. Tatiana Calderon 21st ahead of Cowan Rao. George Russell a long way back, Silverstone winner, but his qualifying session for this race interrupted when Matt Solomon clattered into him, put both of them out of the running, and therefore George Russell hadn't really got into his stride, and the only 2 lap times he'd done were a bit so-so rather than real gun laps.
I had a conversation with him last night actually, and he was safety car lights are out, so it's coming in this lap, but yeah, he's very much looking forward to the next round.
Indeed so, and he raced at Pau last year in Formula Renault, so he'll have some track knowledge of that, which will stand him in good stead, one hopes. Right, Rosenqvist is about to turn up the wick. We go racing then after just 1 lap behind the safety car. Hankook tyres for everybody, wet tyres for everybody, and Felix Rosenqvist powers his way out of the Sud Curve. The green flags fly. We go racing in this round 6 of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. Rosenqvist across the line. He's already a second ahead of Charles Leclerc. I think 1 or 2 of them were a little bit sluggish away. And barring a disaster, Felix Rosenqvist already looks like he's going to be unstoppable because he's got so much Formula 3 experience, wet or dry. Mercedes Power, admittedly it's a new team, but Prema Power Team is one of the top squads. Even though he is new to the team, he has all the experience from previous years in Formula 3. Callum Ilott battling there with Antonio Giovinazzi. Giovinazzi sprints away and tries to get himself onto the tail there of Lance Stroll. So Giovinazzi is on the move, isn't he?
Giovinazzi definitely going to be one to watch here. Now, where Rosenqvist has a huge advantage is just look at that spray that's chucked up into the straight into the face of Charles Leclerc effectively, and around the hairpin they go, and Giovinazzi again
tries the outside line on this effort to go past Lance Stroll. It doesn't work. It was contact. Ilott tapped into a spin. That, I think, was Günther that did the tapping. Callum Ilott able to rejoin and didn't lose too many places. Very, very fortunate in all of that. But we'll see whether it's done damage to his car, whether it's done damage to the car of his aggressor. We'll get a replay of that, no doubt, in a moment as Rosenqvist leads them through the Mercedes arena and then towards the stadium for the first time. Giovinazzi hunting for traction as the cars power towards us. Jake Dennis there getting together with Callum Illett. Dennis to Prema Power Team this year, Callum Illett at Carlin, and then Alex Albon, the British driver, is right there as well. Alessio Lorandi in the pit lane. He's had a pretty miserable weekend, I'm afraid, with damage, with dramas, and it doesn't look as though he's going to get going in this race. Now, there's the contact against Callum Illett, and I think it was Max Günther who'd been a bit sluggish off the line that did the move up the inside. No, it wasn't Max Günther, apologies, it was Mikkel Jensen in the second of the Muka Motorsport cars. So Günther is third, Leclerc is second, Rosenqvist is the leader, and as they come across the timing line, the gap is 1.3 seconds. But look at the daylight, second to third, Leclerc to Günther, that's a monster gap. And then Günther also is a long way clear of Giovinazzi.
Yes, Giovinazzi now got some real work to do from P4, hasn't he? As the rest of the cars come through here, the spray continuing to be thrown up as, I think it has stopped raining now. Just making a move into turn 2. I note from the comms position was Pietro Fittipaldi.
And Jake Dennis runs wide. Alex Albon tries to get up the inside of him as they work their way around turn 2. But Jake Dennis covers the line. Callum Illett dropping back a little bit, isn't he? I know he's had that contact and therefore the half spin, but the fact that he's losing a few more places does suggest that there's been a bit of damage to the car. Menezes under attack now from Ryan Tveter, the two Jagonia I Am Carlin teammates on the inside line for the hairpin. He's going to be Gustavo Menezes, but Ryan Tveter up from Formula Renault has got his nose in front. He's on the outside line. Have a look ahead. Albon's up the inside of Illett, and Tveter goes ahead of Menezes. Change and change and change all the way up the order. Illett fights back against Albon and goes through. The hairpin, a key overtaking place on this lap, and particularly when there's varying degrees of traction, it's ever more important. But the leading three getting away from the opposition now. Down towards the stadium will come the race leaders from the Mercedes arena. The right-hander of the Mobile 1 curve is next. That brings them into the stadium. There's the Sachs curve, the Sud curve, and then up towards the end of the lap. Callum Illett then back ahead of Alex Albon. There you've got Gustavo Menezes back ahead of Ryan Tveter. And behind Tveter is Raoul Hyman up from the BRDC F4 Championship, in which he was very competitive last year. One of the features of this championship has always been that you have drivers with a pretty strong pedigree from other junior categories all squaring up against each other. Reputations can be made, they can be broken in this class.
Absolutely. So Rosenqvist leading with a 1.5 second margin over Leclerc, then it's Günther, then it is Giovinazzi, before it's Stroll, Jensen, Ferrucci and Pommer
in 8th place, and Jake Dennis is 9th, and Callum Illett is 10th, and there is Jake Dennis at the back of that little group that you were looking at out of turn 1. Huge amounts of spray hanging in the air. And Santino Ferrucci there getting himself onto the back of Mikkel Jensen. The two Muka Motorsport cars running together. Lance Stroll, the Canadian, is just up the road ahead in the Prema Power Team tricolor colours. You'll see him there going over the safety car line. And Lance Stroll, part of the Ferrari Young Driver programme, being compared in many respects to Gilles Villeneuve, of course, the famous Canadian that drove for Ferrari in the late 70s, early 80s before his tragic death in 1982. Now, out of the hairpin comes the leading gaggle. Jake Dennis there, look, closing onto the back of Marcus Pommer, who goes wide. Don't be too perturbed if people go really deep into that hairpin, because on the outside line they will find a little bit more traction, and you can see where that does pay off. So in the wet like this, some of the lines look unusual, but they are done for the most part for a reason.
I think the man on the charge here is Giovinazzi. He is reeling Günther in, so just keep an eye on Giovinazzi over the next few laps and see what he can do as Mikkel Jensen and Peter Muka looks on to see how his charge is doing out there on track. And frowny face, that's for sure, from Peter Muka.
Great enthusiast though still, and still races in historics,
yes,
on occasions, with his old Group 5 Zach Speed Capri that he has, race winner at the Oldtimer last year. And Ryan Tveter has either got a transponder problem or has gone missing on this lap, because he's not been given a second sector time. So has Ryan Tveter gone missing? Let's keep an eye as the leaders come over the timing line now. Rosenqvist 1.4 seconds up on Charles Leclerc, who's just done the fastest lap of the race, in fairness to him. In 3rd place is Max Günther, Giovinazzi 4th, gap back. 5th is Lance Stroll. In 6th place still we've got Mikkel Jensen, then it's Ferrucci, then a small gap before Pommer, before Dennis and Illett, rounding out the top 10. Gustavo Menezes has just gone by, and Ryan Tveter has not. So I think he is still circulating, but badly delayed, Ryan Tveter. So he's had a moment, and I fear the hairpin may well have been the place for it. So we're on to lap number 5, 22 in total, or 35 minutes, depending on which comes first. And the race leader, Felix Rosenqvist, being caught a little bit by Charles Leclerc in the first sector, only by 27 thousandths of a second, but it does suggest that Leclerc is trying as hard as he possibly can.
And of course what Leclerc will do is he will try and maintain a little bit of a gap back, won't he, for visibility reasons if nothing else, before he if he's going to try and get close enough to have an overtake attempt, then he's going to get one chance only really because of visibility, isn't he, with the spray being chucked up by our race leader Felix Rosenqvist. And then it is Leclerc in P2, Gunter being chased by Antonio Giovinazzi then in P4. There over the last 3 laps you can see the margin between Felix Rosenqvist and Charles Leclerc.
And in the middle sector on this lap, it's come down by nearly 0.3 of a second.
Yeah.
Now, that is very impressive indeed. Goes back to, in part, the fact that Rosenqvist is the first driver to have to come across the grip levels every time, whereas Leclerc can kind of judge his pace against that of the leader, maybe.
And they do change lap after lap, don't they?
Absolutely. In theory, they should be for the better.
Yes.
But equally, it's down to Felix Rosenqvist to find where the grip levels are. And you can see there's a dry line just peeking through as up towards the line comes Felix Rosenqvist then. He's chased by Charles Leclerc, who's done another best lap of the race and in fact takes the best part of half a second out of him.
Absolutely. He is on a charge, isn't he, Charles Leclerc? Right. The fastest lap comes from him now, as you saw up on screen. And I think this fight is going to be on in a few moments, isn't it, between race-leading Felix Rosenqvist and Charles Leclerc in P2. Then it's Gunter, Giovinazzi, Stroll, Jensen. And into the Parabolica they go now. There is our race-leading Felix Rosenqvist then.
Tell you one thing, Dave, the weather conditions haven't half stretched out the field, because as you're looking at the race leaders here, heading up towards the hairpin, we've still got cars coming into the stadium just about, and the top 2 close the gap. But again, look at the margin they've pulled here over Max Gunter. Really is mighty impressive given these weather conditions. Now they're almost hidden, Charles Leclerc behind Rosenqvist. In the first sector, again, Leclerc fractionally faster, but you know what's going to happen. The closer he gets, the more he'll run in dirty air. But there Rosenqvist slides into the Mercedes arena. Hit the wet, understeered out wide, and the car's really moving around a lot now. Sergio Santacamara gets back into the race, and the Moto Park de la Volkswagen after a spin. That, I think, was at turn 1. So there are 2 problems facing Leclerc. One is the aero, as he gets closer to the car ahead. The other is spray.
But also, Felix Rosenqvist has got the pressure of knowing that Charles Leclerc is very quick and right on him now. So, you know, we're looking out for just slight errors from Felix Rosenqvist. Again, going back to the point that you make every single lap, he's testing the grip levels at every single corner. And if he does make a mistake and comes across a really loose section, that plays into the hands of Charles Leclerc a little bit.
So here they come up towards the timing line. The gap was 0.9 of a second last time through. It's down to 0.6 of a second now. And Charles Leclerc is as close as he has ever been. And just look at the gap. These 2 are really pushing.
Mighty, isn't it? Absolutely mighty. Those 2 at the front really doing a great job out there. And Felix Rosenqvist is going to have one eye on defence, isn't he? As Charles Leclerc tries to get on terms with him. Just at 0.6 the margin between the 2. Further back down the order then at Albon. He's
trying to keep Gustavo Menezes at bay. Alex Albon coming into the championship new this year. His dad used to race in the British Touring Car Championship, Nigel, going back to the days of Renault 19s. He drove for Harlow Motorsport. Alex Albon then keeping Gustavo Menezes at bay. Gustavo knows about a Formula 3 car after a year in the German Championship, a year in the European Championship as well. But there are the 2 race leaders. Felix Rosenqvist. Just looking at his front wing, does it strike you as running lower to the ground than the front wing on Leclerc's car? And is that affecting life, or was it just my eyes, which have had a long weekend? Certainly the gap is coming down, isn't it? Even further.
Still in some sections of the track, there's really a lot of standing water, isn't there? And no, I'm not sure.
Could just be a tweak on the setup if it is a gnat's lower, but either way, Rosenqvist, I reckon, has pulled the gap out again going in towards the stadium on that lap. Let's catch up on other dramas, because earlier on, 35, which is Kang Ling, got it all wrong coming through the stadium. And as the road drops away and the grass verge drops away, it's hard to get back onto the track. I don't think he was on his own in that. It looked initially as though there was another car that had been embroiled. And Ling, having got back onto the circuit, then had a drama going into turn 1 and ran out wide there as well. It doesn't look as though the car is damaged. Clatters his way back onto the circuit.
Right ahead of Zheng Li.
Yes. So Ling continues. The lead gap is half a second. You're looking at the rest of the field pouring through. In the background, Jake Dennis in the red, white and blue for Racing Steps Foundation. There is Alex Albon still keeping number 4 at bay, which is Gustavo Menezes.
I think Menezes looks a bit closer now.
Go along with that, yes. And he's also got a tighter line into turn 1, powering up now towards the north curve. Menezes currently is lapping at better pace. Not everybody, but the midfield really starting to do personal best lap times. He's a bit stuck, isn't he, at the moment, Gustavo Menezes, the American driver based in the UK, and although he's close to the back there of Alex Albon, what he hasn't been able to do is get close enough to make a move, and if he can't get close enough, then he's just going to remain there unless he can force a mistake out of the Brit ahead of him.
In the meantime, at the head of the pack, there's Felix Rosenqvist. There is Charles Leclerc then as they continue their battle. Felix Rosenqvist leads at the moment. Last time around the gap was half a second. And Felix Rosenqvist at the moment appears to have everything under control, doesn't he? Certainly looks to be the case, but you just get the impression that Charles Leclerc is not going to give up on this, that's for sure. He wants that P1 position. The Monegasque driver in second spot, so close, isn't he, to the Swede? The flick of correction needed there as he came through the Sachs curve. On to lap 8 now of possible 22. We've got just over 19 minutes to go, and a flying lap at the moment is a 1 minute 50. So it's going to be to time more than laps, I suspect, as they come over the line now. But Rosenqvist there looking for a wetter part of the road, interestingly. The gap has gone up to 0.7 of a second. That time around, Rosenqvist did respond. Now, what's going on behind, a long way behind, is that still third is Max Günther, who has just done a personal best lap. He's actually lapping quicker than these two now, but he's got to make up 8.5 seconds, and that ain't going to happen, I don't think, unless we get a safety car. As through towards the Parabolica now goes the race leader, and Rosenqvist has just done the best of anybody in the first sector. So is he now just starting to turn up the wick a little bit and say, okay, right, we've had our playtime, now I think it's that time I got on with this, and he's starting to edge away. Rosenqvist now certainly looking more confident. There is a mechanical warning meatball flag, I think, going to Nicholas Pola, the double R car. He's going to get the black and orange flag for a mechanical issue this time around. And the road is certainly drying, because now, peppered across the timing screen, are greens for personal best sectors and the occasional purple for an absolute best. And as Rosenqvist powers his way through the Mercedes arena, if the road is drying out, then tyre management, tyre preservation is going to be key. And tyre preservation with wet weather tyres is, of course, keeping them cool, isn't it? And just wherever you can, running through water to do so. And what have we got? We've still got just under 18 minutes left to run, haven't we? So that is going to be important.
Jake Dennis versus Callum Ilott, who is the man behind, trying to find a way past. The Prema Power Team driver is Jake Dennis. For Red Bull, for Carlin, it's Callum Ilott. It's Mercedes versus Volkswagen as well, as they thread their way up now towards the approach of the stadium. Illott's chance to go through didn't really happen. Jake Dennis was able to defend. Behind is Alex Albon in the Signature run car. Signature back into the championship this year, and Illott a little bit sideways then as he runs wide, gets onto that slippery curb. Early on in the weekend, we were noticing that the Volkswagen cars seemed to be good through the twisty bits, like the stadium. The Mercedes engine cars seemed to have the grunt in a straight line. On the power part of the circuit, they were looking better. And there, look, Menezes coming back at Albon right under the rear wing, but then slithers his way through the Sud curve. Is he close enough to make a move coming up towards the line? Don't think he is, no, because as they come past the pits down towards turn 1, Menezes will be 3 lengths back potentially there, gets into the braking zone, but you can see how much drier the road is now there. The dry line, there's only one of it, yes, meaning that to overtake you've still got to go to the wet parts, but the road is certainly getting drier. And what we are seeing is on different parts of the circuit where it has dried out more quickly, is that diving up the inside there, trying to have a go, Gustavo Menezes, but that wasn't ever going to work, was it? When you come off that line, you're going into a much more slippery surface, aren't you? And therefore, it's hard to get the traction down, the power down out of the corner. So Menezes gave it a good shot. He was level, but then just didn't have the traction, didn't have the drive out of the corner. And what else is going on lower down the order? We've got Lance Stroll having to defend now from Mikael Jensen for his 5th place. What's going on between Günther and Giovinazzi? 2.3 seconds. Giovinazzi has been on the podium in every race thus far. He had to work really hard for it yesterday, but at the moment he is in 4th spot as Nabil Jeffrey there, the Malaysian driver, loops it coming out of turn 1. Does he hit anything? No, hooks first gear and gets back into the race. Nabil Jeffrey, another driver stepping up from the German Championship, as indeed is Moto Park as a team.
And that just proves the point. If you go out onto those painted curbs where the adhesion level is even lower, it can catch you out. Indeed, did catch him out.
Cheer up, guys. I know it's been a long weekend, but there's a Carlin car fourth. That's it, thank you. And Felix Rosenqvist is the race leader for Prema Power Team. Still being chased by Charles Leclerc. Now the fastest lap of the race, Antonio Giovinazzi in fourth position. That should wake the Carlin guys up. As really deep into turn 2, that time goes Rosenqvist. That'll have woken him up as well.
Yes, I think you're right. So Rosenqvist running really, really deep there. Giovinazzi going very, very quickly as well. So there is Charles Leclerc in P2. Margin between them, as you can see, as they run around the parabolica now, heading up towards the hairpin. Still plenty of spray being chucked up, despite the fact the track is drying. And heavy braking now from Felix Rosenqvist, getting right on the rear wing. There is Charles Leclerc, but absolutely no chance of anything happening there as Rosenqvist has the drive out. And here we can see Felix Rosenqvist, I suspect, with that moment where he ran very, very wide. David well noticed that, and Leclerc actually doing the same.
Yeah, I think that was out of turn 1, wasn't it? Where they're both fighting for traction and running wide, but it was certainly up at turn 2, as you say, that Rosenqvist just carried a bit too much speed into the corner, perhaps thinking there was more grip than there really was, and running deep and running wide, and therefore the gap has come down. Incidentally, Giovinazzi is the fastest man on the circuit now. He's lapping in the 1:49s, quicker than anybody else out there. Rosenqvist, of course, would have lost a bit of ground because of his little moment onto the runoff area. Charles Leclerc has bought back into it, though. In the first sector he was quicker, in the second sector he was quicker, and therefore Rosenqvist is going to have to start defending once more. These two long gone as far as third place Maximilian Günther is concerned. Günther needs to be cautious because Giovinazzi has just taken another 10th out of him in the second sector and took 2 tenths out in the first, so third and fourth it's coming down. Over the line goes the race leader Felix Rosenqvist, the gap half a second, and Leclerc close once again, but it still looks to me as though the only way he's going to do this is to force a mistake out of the Swede. Which we have seen in the past.
Yeah. So if he maintains that pressure and keeps that pressure up on Felix Rosenqvist, who knows? And cars getting a bit squiffy through there, aren't they? Because still a lot of water out on that track.
And the drivers know it's drying, and therefore they're inclined to just sort of treat it as though it's a bit drier than it really is, and that's when they apply the throttle perhaps a little bit too much, and suddenly the grip disappears once again and they have to back out of it. But Leclerc now is close enough to make a move, but the door is closed and locked and bolted, and there's a tap in the tail. Leclerc just nudges his way into the rear wheel of Rosenqvist's car. Now, has that done any damage to the nose of Leclerc's car, and has it done any tyre damage to Felix Rosenqvist? I don't think it will, given the angle of the contact. Let's have another look. Leclerc
was fairly straight on, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think it has damaged that nose a little bit.
Yes, it has. It certainly dropped it and rubbed against the tyre.
Now those end plates there, they're just lots and lots of layers on there, so if we see that flapping about, that's not necessarily going to be an issue, and certainly at the moment doesn't look like his pace has been altered, does it?
No, indeed. That replay, incidentally, was Julio Moreno digging himself out of the gravel as the race leaders continue.
Now they're going to come up against the Polar car, aren't they, which is effectively a back-marking car, the P3 and P4 drivers that we see there, including Antonio Giovinazzi. So Giovinazzi may see this as a bit of an opportunity to get onto Günther.
Not only are they going to come up on Nicolas Pola, he has also been given the black and orange mechanical warning flag. He's then been investigated for exceeding the pit lane speed limit, and he's now been given a drive-through for exceeding the pit lane speed limit. So
needs a notebook, really.
Absolutely. When it's not your day, it's not your day.
Just noticed that Rosenqvist was under even more pressure from Leclerc. Look, they're ever closer. Leclerc is really on the back of him now. So as they exit that turn and start the run through the parabolica here, Rosenqvist is going to be under pressure now, and he's going to know that. And is this where he will crack under that pressure and Leclerc is going to be able to take advantage of it? Last time around we saw them touch. Is that going to be happening now?
Let's see, because in the slipstream is Charles Leclerc. This time he's going to go for the wider approach and try and get the switch back, try and get the cut back, but he's too wide into the corner, too deep. He's going to lose time there. Rosenqvist comes out of the corner further ahead. Charles Leclerc would have lost a length as a consequence of that. But what it does do, at least, is indicate where he can gain back the time. He's assessing all the while where he is strong and where Rosenqvist is strong, and in doing so, he's starting to plan his attack. He's good into the Mercedes arena. Maybe a bit too good, too much speed, looks to the inside line, but by the time he's got the traction back, he's lost the ground.
Okay, Gunter then and Giovinazzi taking a look up the inside. They've both got past the backmarking Polar car that's got a whole raft of penalties to come, and now turning the wick up is Charles Leclerc.
Game on for the race lead, isn't it? Felix Rosenqvist, who looked dominant off the safety car start, is now really having to work oh so hard, because right there behind him is Charles Leclerc, who, do not forget, is a Formula 3 rookie. This is his first season, and Charles Leclerc then now turning his way up towards the Sud curve. He's not going to be able to find a way through there. What he needs now is a good, quick, safe, error-free run through the next couple of corners so that he can challenge again on the way towards the hairpin. Rosenqvist moves across, finds the wetter part of the road, also puts a bit more spray into the face of Charles Leclerc, who bravely continues to sit there almost under the rear wing. Up towards turn 2 now. We've seen Rosenqvist go deep into this corner before. Again, Leclerc right in the wheel tracks. Is he going to dive up the inside? He's close enough to do it. They both run a little bit wide away from that dry line. And what's going on behind? Still for third is Gunter, still fourth is Giovinazzi, but the two race leaders then run together as they work their way up towards the Parabolica. Leclerc, for me, looks like he's lost a length there, but he's in the draft now. That tows him back into contention. Rosenqvist has the inside line covered. Charles Leclerc goes to the outside line. They avoid all the standing water. Rosenqvist slides a little bit. This is the chance for Leclerc. Is there a gap? Yes. Is there the race lead? Not quite, because he's almost level. He's got the inside line for the next corner. This is going to be really brave stuff. Charles Leclerc on the inside line goes through. Fantastic move. Really brave stuff, that having to go offline to do the overtaking. And can he get it all slowed down for the next corner and hang on to the advantage? Yes, he can. Really well deserved that place.
It was like last time was almost a rehearsal, because he didn't go quite so deep into the hairpin this time, and he set that up absolutely perfectly, didn't he?
You're absolutely right. Meantime, we've had a coming together there, look, between Hongwei Cao and Pietro Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi, number 12, grandson of Emerson, and connects with Hongwei Cao. That pitches him into a spin. He's able to rejoin, but Fittipaldi is out of the race, and he was also a retirement from race 1. I've got a horrible feeling while that car is moved, there may well be a safety car, but we shall see. The race officials really do err on the side of caution this year. Safety car deployed.
There, no surprise, just as Giovinazzi was getting ever closer to Gunter there. Well, that was going back to that overtake from Leclerc. Previous lap, he really had rehearsed that to see perhaps just how deep he could go before trying to take that switchback. Realised that the first time of asking, he went in too far, and this time around got it absolutely perfectly right.
The safety car didn't quite pick up the race leader, but Charles Leclerc saw the flashing lights, got a message, I think, as well, to lift, and so the safety car was able to overtake him, and therefore everybody in the right order is behind the safety car. The race continues, albeit under control conditions, while Fittipaldi's car is removed. This is all a legacy of Jules Bianchi's accident from last year, so that you don't have cars circulating at race pace while there's a snatch vehicle required. And I told you about Nicolas Polo and his drive-through penalty. Now the field will all bunch up, and that's not going to be the work of a moment, because we've still got cars coming into the stadium.
Well, you had said much earlier on just how spread the entire pack was, so yes, you're right. Here's a replay then of this overtake. And this time he braked earlier, didn't he? Yeah. And then really turned sharply and kissed the... We didn't only kiss, he virtually snogged the apex there, didn't he?
Just look at Rosenqvist there. There's just ever so slight slide, and he kind of slithered into the corner, then the traction bit. But while he was sliding, of course, that enabled Leclerc to get it all lined up. And this was the climax to it, coming into the Mercedes arena.
And Leclerc just remained absolutely committed, didn't he? And, well... It's a super move, super move.
He was going to have that. Make your own arrangements, Felix. I am coming through. And having done all the hard work, then, of course, they all queue up behind him. Yes. We've only got 6.5 minutes to go, however, so we're not going to get that many racing laps in when we do go green. Shouldn't be too long to get Fittipaldi's car out of the way. And the field then turning its way now through the Mercedes arena. It has been a really busy weekend at Hockenheim, with 3 Formula 3 races, 2 for Audi, 2 for Porsche, 2 for the DTM. And we have seen that switchback move pulled at the hairpin so often this weekend. and it's worked for Charles Leclerc, and you can see how much drier the road is, and this of course gives them a bit more chance to preserve tyres.
Of course it does. It's great when that switchback is got right.
Yes.
And not so when it isn't. Okay, let's have a look and see how we're getting on in terms of the recovery to the left-hand side there. Can't see, but lights are still on in the safety car. Now, under investigation, car number 12, which is Pietro Fittipaldi. And also under investigation is the incident between Pietro Fittipaldi and the Hongwei Cao car 2. So there we are. That's the latest we can bring you from the messages that we get from race control.
Let's have a look at more replays of their 33 running wide over the curb. 33 being Mahavir Raghunathan, the Indian driver. And getting it all sideways with a bit of arm twirling. He manages to get it back.
Controlled it, didn't he?
Yeah, and that was Rosenqvist versus Leclerc earlier on in the race, where there was that little nudge going through the hairpin.
I mean, when you consider in these conditions how close those cars race.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a real testimony to the drivers that they can get away with that. So,
being told that there's no further action against Pietro Fittipaldi for that incident that we saw.
Okay, Charles Leclerc is the race leader, and as the safety car has collected most in the race, still there are others trying to play catch-up. Let's catch up on other dramas. That was Nabil Jaffrey that we saw earlier on in the race, wasn't it? The Malaysian driver having a spin coming out of turn 1.
Gathered it all up quite nicely and got going again.
Quite sure whose race Peter Mucker was being amused by, but anyway, he shouldn't be too happy, because although he's got one of his cars up near the front, only third, he wants to be winning races. So Leclerc, Rosenqvist, Gunter, Giovinazzi, who now does have an even better chance of getting on the podium, does he not? And then you've got in 5th place Michael Jensen and 6th Lance Stroll, and we've got under 4 minutes of the race to go now.
Yes, he would like to maintain that record of being on the podium every single race, wouldn't he, Giovinazzi? And to do that, he's got to get past Gunter, who is ahead of him, and with the safety car bunching them all up, then that is going to give even greater opportunity perhaps to Giovinazzi to do that. Although
he's on his toes already.
He's going to go for it then, wasn't he? That would have been a mistake. We do have only 3.5 minutes left to run, and I just noticed as we saw that shot there were still some cars coming down, and the safety car is coming in this lap. The lights go out now, so it is down to Leclerc to back them up. Felix Rosenqvist, I suspect, will think he's got another opportunity to try and wrestle the lead back again now. And Gunter is also backing them up too, which is interesting. Well, Gunter just feels that he's under attack from Giovinazzi, but gets back on it now. And
yeah, but that's wrong, Dave, you see, because he got onto it, as you say, but then he has to slow because he's caught up to those ahead. And so what he's done is go and slow, and that is a definite no-no. So now it's up to Charles Leclerc to control this restart, and Giovinazzi is glued to the back of Gunter's car. The green flags wave, and we're going to go racing with about, what, 2:35 on the clock, give or take, as they come up towards the line. So it will be 2 more laps, this and 1 more. And Charles Leclerc, look, has pulled the gap already.
He's away like a stabbed rat, you would say.
He is indeed, like a robber's dog, he's away there. And the real fight now is going to be on for 3rd place. Max Gunter versus Antonio Giovinazzi. Those two running close together. But Rosenqvist can offer no opposition now to Leclerc. Really curious, this, the way that his race kind of ebbed away from the early pace.
Yes, all of them just searching for some of the wetter parts of the track.
Max Gunter, black and white flag, infringement of safety car regulations.
You spotted it long before we did.
So you don't slow and go. That's part of what it was, and also lagging back from the cars ahead. When you're in the pack, you're meant to stay with the pack. So it's only a driving standards flag. There's no further action on that as Leclerc goes deep into the hairpin, but he'll find some traction there. Have a look there, because up the inside goes Santino Ferrucci against Lance Stroll, and almost drives him off the road there. Ferrucci wanted the line, and the fact that Lance Stroll was on it didn't really matter. Stroll off, never mind Stroll on. He's back on now, but that's going to take a bit of looking at, I would have thought, by the officials. Stroll got back on ahead of Pommer, but that was uncompromising, to say the least, by Ferrucci. Illett on Albon, Dennis up the inside of Schiller. It could all end in tears, couldn't it?
Yes.
There's a line, you know, about safety cars breeding safety cars.
Yes.
Yes, well, here we go. So to the inside there, having a look to try and gain track position. Marcus Pommer getting out of the draft of Lance Stroll, who will have lost out. Number 5, Santino Ferrucci, is under investigation. And there, way out, is Tatiana Calderon. Oh, and one of the Fortec cars, I think. That's Matt Rao, isn't it? Back onto the circuit, whoops, and therefore as he joins, puts 32 Jikong Lee, Peter Lee onto the grass. And they're going to bang wheels, and Peter Lee gets forced off the road again. You can tell it's the last race of the weekend. It's all getting a bit dim-ob happy, isn't it?
Yes, it is rather, and whilst all that is...
Gunter, spin from third. Giovinazzi, sorry to interrupt you, but Giovinazzi has done it. The podium record is going to be continued. And Maximilian Gunter spun coming out of turn one, just caught a glimpse at the top of the shot.
Oh, well spotted, well spotted. I was going to go on to say that Leclerc is building up such a gap over Rosenqvist, 2.5 seconds.
And there you can see Alex Albon going wide up towards turn two. Hangs on to his place, but he's having to work really hard for this. So, the effect of bunching them all up under the safety car means there's been quite a lot of shuffling down the order, and Charles Leclerc has got half a lap to go before a second win of the season. And there it is, look, Gunter just hung the back out over the curb and eventually lost traction. Round he went, so Giovinazzi up to third, up into fourth, Mikkel Jensen. For my money, this has been a very impressive drive by Charles Leclerc, although there he runs a little bit deep. But he's on target for win number 2 of the year.
And for a dangerous driving, Matt Rao gets a drive-through penalty,
which will be translated into a time penalty at the end of the race because there won't be time to take it on this, the last lap. So,
and so too Zilong Lee.
Okay, and they were the two, weren't they, that got themselves together. Well, they'll end up with a time penalty put onto the race time and drop down the order. So, through the stadium for the last time, Charles Leclerc, who came into this race second in the championship behind Antonio Giovinazzi, and this haul of points is going to be very good news for him indeed. It's good for Van Amersfoort, and Charles Leclerc, new to the championship this year, is going to come through to score victory. Charles Leclerc will win round 6 of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. The Monegasque driver wins from Felix Rosenqvist, who comes through for second. Antonio Giovinazzi bags third, and the podium record is continued. Fourth, Mikkel Jensen. Fifth, Santino Ferrucci. Sixth, Maximilian Gunter. And then behind it, Stroll, seventh, Pommer, eighth. Dennis, 9th, Albon 10th. They're the point scorers ahead of Callum Illett, Gustavo Menezes, Dorian Boccaracci, and the rest pour through, with Arjun Maini coming through next, the Indian driver in 14th place ahead of Sam McLeod, the Brit, 15th. So for Charles Leclerc, it is a race win, 2.9 seconds to the good. He was at the very end of the race, and very well deserved it was, that victory, because he had to work hard to fight his way through into the lead. And having done so, he was then able to control that restart and get away from Felix Rosenqvist, who certainly early on was looking very good indeed. And here is contact between Gunter and Ferrucci, and that's on the last lap coming into the stadium. We'd already seen Gunter's spin, but then he and Ferrucci got together, so Ferrucci coming through to take the place. Is there anything on the screen about that? Ferrucci's under investigation anyway for an earlier move against Lance Stroll, but it might be that that ends up being looked into as well. So the weather conditions helping to make for a very spectacular race. Charles Leclerc, the overall race winner, and he will also be the winning rookie from Mikkel Jensen. And we have a correction on the screen. Santino Ferrucci gets a drive-through penalty for a dangerous manoeuvre. Well, he can't take that because the race is over. And 32, Peter Lee, Jikong Lee, no drive-through penalty. So his is taken away, but Santino Ferrucci does get a drive-through penalty. So Ferrucci, who finished 5th on the road, as I say, will get this time penalty, and that will drop him down the order, confirmation of exactly where to come. So Ferrucci has been put down the order, and 28th is where the time penalty puts him. 30 seconds is the time penalty, and by the time you bear in mind that everybody had bunched up under the safety car, it drops him a long way down, whereas no safety car and all the gaps had been there, it would have been a different story. But Santino Ferrucci then gets the equivalent of a drive-through penalty and drops down to 28th place. So Charles Leclerc is the winner as he stands on top of the Van Amersfoort Racing Dallara Volkswagen, steps down to go and embrace the engineers that have worked so hard over the weekend And he has repaid their faith and their hard work by scoring win number 2. And the next fascination is to see what the championship situation is now going to be with Leclerc and Giovinazzi, because it's a win for Charles. It is a third place in the yellow overalls there, Antonio Giovinazzi. The Carlin engineers are those making the noise on the boards around Parc Fermé. The driver's going to be weighed. The cars still have to be checked by the FIA technical delegate. And so Charles Leclerc is the winner of round 6 of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship from Felix Rosenqvist and Antonio Giovinazzi. Mikkel Jensen 4th, Max Günther 5th, despite contact on the last lap. 6th, Lance Stroll, Marcus Pommer 7th, Jake Dennis 8th, Alex Albon 9th, and Callum Illett promoted into the points with the penalty for Santino Ferrucci. Behind them in 11th place is Gustavo Menezes, best of the rest, effectively out of the points, ahead of Dorian Boccolacci. Algermani 13th, then Sam McLeod ahead of Fabian Schiller. Raoul Hyman is 16th, Brandon Marsano 17th, George Russell, disappointing weekend for him, only 18th ahead of Michele Beretta, and then Ryan Teeter, who had an off early on, remember. Hong-Wei Kao 21st ahead of Nabil Jeffrey and Matt Solomon. Kang Ling 24th, Tatiana Calderon ahead of Julio Moreno, then Sergio Sette Camara and Santino Ferrucci demoted with the penalty to 28th ahead of Peter Lee, and then it is going to be Matt Rao for 31st. Nicholas Pola comes next. And 1 or 2 drivers not making it to the line, sad to say. But the one that got to the line first was Charles Leclerc. Max Günther 5th in the end. And it was a spin coming out of turn 1 that did for him. It was a long, lazy slide that he'd had to worry about earlier on in the race. That one was controlled, but in the end he was bitten and he spun, and then he was hit later on in the lap, as we saw, by Santino Ferrucci. So Felix Rosenqvist looked so strong early on in the race, but he couldn't repel the challenge of Charles Leclerc, and it means that Rosenqvist is second, but it's still points, and that's all good over a hugely busy 33 race campaign.
Indeed, and off next with the next round of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship, to a very, very different circuit indeed, to the relative wide open spaces of Hockenheim. Yeah. Off to Po, where you were last year, and
it's a wonderful circuit, I'll tell you, and it's got lots of elevation, it's narrow, unforgiving walls, some really fast sequences as well. If you've never been to Po, I would recommend it, because it's a great weekend of racing. But it's, as Dave Richardson rightly says, a complete contrast from a modern-day Formula 1 circuit with all the runoff area. You make the hint of a mistake at Po and you're in the wall, and it's going to be interesting to see who comes out on top there. 3 races to look forward to, and there has in the last 24 hours been a calendar change as well, because Formula 3 won't be going to Moscow as was the original plan at the end of August. Instead it will go to the Algarve a week later and go and race in Portimao.